Good morning, cellists. Well, here we are at the end of the Easter weekend and the beginning of a new week, our fourth week, looking at the first suite. This week we're going to look at the Allemande, which is notionally a German dance, as the French word might imply. This was actually a popular dance in the Baroque era of the 16th century and has become obviously a part of the suite structure. Its notable characteristics are the 4 beats in a bar, the short semiquaver upbeat is also characteristic of this dance movement. And as per the majority of other movements that we're looking at here, it's in binary form, so it's got 2 sections to it, and as per most of the other movements, it moves to the dominant by the end of the first section and back home to the tonic at the end of the second section. It also, like all other movements except for the second minuet, it also modulates to the relative minor. Now, let's see if we can remember what that is. We're in G major, and the shared key signature for finding out the relative minor, we go back 3 letters from a G, F, E. We find an E. E is the relative minor of G major. So, guess what? Yes, the scale for today's session is going to be E minor, which will be very useful pattern work for the Bach suite. Let's begin with that then. So rather than beginning on a 3rd finger, we'll begin with the 1st finger. Now this means that in actual fact we're just looking at a 2-octave scale here, we're going to be using a closed finger system. There's absolutely no open strings in this solution, which means that it's actually a generic solution. It means that you could take that fingering and begin on any note, and you could create this scale at the minor scale. So let's look at the harmonic minor of E minor. Beginning on the 1, we then move back to 1st position. Now, when you're moving across the string, rather than jumping, try and stretch towards it. So we straighten the 1st finger back towards the A, and then similarly again, we stretch it out towards the D sharp in half position. Moving up to the 3rd position, stretch. Now, in the harmonic minor, I need to move my 1st finger back a displaced tone. Let me explain what that means. Currently, my 1st finger is on a G. If I were to cross the string, I'd be on a D natural, but I need a C natural, which is a whole tone back from there. So I'm calling that a displaced tone. Stretch towards it. It'll probably be impossible to actually reach it whilst you're holding little finger on, but don't worry, just point towards it. Then stretch your 3rd finger for an augmented 2nd. Stretch out towards the B. Stretch back to the G. Half position. When you move back into half position, lead with the elbow. Keeping your 1st finger on this D sharp, stretch out to C natural. Now the same problem and solution as we had at the top of the scale. I need to get my 4th finger now a displaced tone towards the floor. I'm on an A, my little finger is currently where the C natural is. If I moved across the string, I'd be on an F natural. I need a G, that's a tone higher. Stretch out. So let's just have a look at that again. On the way up, we have stretch, stretch, shift, stretch, stretch, shift, stretch, stretch. And at this last bit, not only are we stretching, but don't forget, you're also rotating your arm, and that enables you to make an even easier transition to the lower string there, which is on quite a severe arc on the instrument. All the while we're looking at trying to be as connected as possible and stretching back towards the note that you want, even if you can't quite make it whilst holding the little finger. You stretch towards it before you let go and maybe have a little tiny bit of rotation on the thumb. In all hand positions which are stretched, you are better placed if your thumb remains pretty much in the centre of the palm. This means a lot of the time this might be behind the 2nd finger, so that when you stretch the second finger, you would have your thumb behind it. That gives you a lot more stretch and should be possible to eliminate any kind of discomfort of the hand, which we definitely don't want. So enjoy your explorations of E minor. Now, thinking about our technical study for the week, I've picked not a particularly typical study from Feuillard. I picked number 10 in the book that we're looking at. The reason I picked it is mostly about a rhythmic understanding that will help us with the Allemande. It's in 4-time and it has a dotted crotchet and quaver action. And really I'm thinking about this as a slowed down version of a beat in the Allemande, as if you had a dotted quaver and a semiquaver. The key of this particular study is B minor. How that relates to our suite key, there are 2 ways we can relate it. The most obvious way is that it is the relative minor of the dominant of our key. I'll remind you, our key is G, the dominant key is D major. If we went backwards from a D, we would come to a B, and B minor is the key of this study, and there you would have the relationship. Now it's also noticeably a 5th above the scale I've given you. So if you wanted, you could do the same scale that we've done for E minor, same pattern, same solution, to start on a different string, and you can try out a little bit of B minor, maybe just 1 octave. Give it a go. So the main interest, as I say, for your number 10 is going to be about the rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So in this study, we're looking at thinking in quavers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So using 3/4 of the bow for the dotted crotchet and 1/4 of the bow for the quaver. Now the way I've just articulated that is a way that is more useful to us for the Allemande, which is a slightly, there's a separation between the 2 notes, but it's not a staccato quaver. Now the way it's written is to be a staccato quaver, and you can try this too, so that you could try with a proper pinch. You can hear that difference. It's articulated by this big finger in particular for the up bow and this one for the down bow, so that you can have a little bit of a pinch on the string. It's not as directly useful to us as the version I first showed you, where there's a separation but not a staccato. It's a little bit more gentle, and this really gets us absolutely in the mood for the Allemande. One final note on that Feuillard, you'll notice that within there's some stretching across so that we get ourselves ready to get into lower 2nd position. It's all in the manuscript there, and I shall send out a copy to all my students. Now let's actually begin the Allemande. So this whole idea of the division of the dotted rhythm that I've just been looking at there with Feuillard is very relevant to the beginning of the Allemande. It's very commonly misplayed. This first anacrusis, or upbeat, is a semiquaver, but it's often played as a quaver by mistake. So you need to really think about the division of each beat into 4 semiquavers in your head before you begin. And if we were to try it without the chord, it might be easier to imagine it. So let's just think 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You need to be thinking about the whole beat and dividing it into 4 before you play that little upbeat B. Otherwise it could too easily be, which is it could be just a poorly measured quaver, or even an accurately measured quaver, but that's still wrong. And I think some of the reason is because the chord can get in the way. which is why I suggest you might initially just try it, just the top line. And then with the chord. When you do the chord, keep this upper arm high and dip down for the lower notes. 1, 2, 3. Now this whole character is so different to the courant that we looked at last week. Courant is a quicker movement. This one is a lot more relaxed, and there are very long phrase lines that go easily into half bar lengths. It's a bit more like a storytelling, and I really feel that this is like a beautiful tale, or a meandering down through the fields under the trees along the side of the river. There's something very picturesque and unhurried about this movement. And that's kind of indicated in some of these bow strokes, where we have 7 and 9 notes in a bow. And the 9 notes really beautifully tailors you into the second half of the bar, almost seamlessly, as if the whole thing is beautifully, smoothly patchworked together. Then we come to bar 3, and coming towards a cadence point. There's our cadence into our key chord of G. And in that bar, bar 4, we've got the little couplets, which we have seen before. And the couplets, you can hear a little lift in the second half of each of those strokes. So we just a tiny bit of a press, release. Press, release. So you can also see in the bow action slightly fast at the beginning of each stroke, and that gives it a little air and light as you fall to the resolution note there. There we have the same couplets, and guess what? There's our E minor arpeggio or broken chord. So we have already arrived at the relative minor. And en route to that, we actually had our favourite diminished seventh, with a little hint at the fact that it's right next door to a B7 chord. That C natural falling to the B creates then actually a dominant seventh. Is how the harmonic architecture is working there. And you might also have noticed that I chose a D string colour in that the whole bar for the diminished seventh fall, then to the A string again, so we've got a lot of tonal colour changes going on in there. Now coming out of this E minor, as we come into the next bar, bar 7, which is an A7 harmony chord that we're looking at here. This is a bar which is a little bit uncomfortable for the bow solution, so I suggest a bow pattern exercise here. So using the open strings, we look at the bow pattern. Again. Now keeping a fairly flat bow here, so that you can move across, especially for these semiquavers only on the A string or the G string. I will show you in a moment the manuscript as it looks, but if I break it down in counting in semiquavers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now I'm trying to count those in breaked portions for where the bow is on which string. I'll show you what it looks like. And this is bar 7. And here we have the bow pattern and the exact relevance to the notes that we are preparing for. If you get the bow pattern right and comfortable, it'll make the left hand's job a lot easier and the whole thing will flow. You might notice the little tied note right in the very centre of that top line. Tied D and then onto an A. So again, I shall just play that for you. Then with the fingers. And it'll be a lot easier if you've done the bow pattern first. Now, in terms of the finger solution, after we've arrived at the bottom E in bar 6, move to a 2 on this G. Now at this point you've got a choice. You can either arrive here on the 2 and then neatly shift back in the middle of that slur so that you're really ready for the sense of lean, or you can shift at that very moment so you don't have to have a shift within the slur. Either of them's fine and it's up to you, and maybe you want to try that out both so you can see that you could actually do either. So let's look at the whole of this section of the first section in its entirety. So we're basically looking at 7 bars. I'm stopping at 7 bars because the 8th bar is really the beginning of a sequence, and it's better kept with the following bars 9 and 10 that it really belongs to. So from the opening, remember to think of your quays semiquavers. 1, 2, 3. Story is going to have to wait to unfold. So I've just landed you on a dominant note. There you are, I'll give you a tiny solution for a moment there. We'll try the latter part tomorrow. Take care.